Jake Rocky Henderson was looking forward to the upcoming weekend as he drove home that afternoon. Wednesday was Veterans Day, but he and Carla, his wife of 4 years, had been invited to spend a 3-day weekend at the country estate of her boss, Robert Langston, a senior partner with Kensington Law Group where Carla worked as a paralegal. Rocky already had Wednesday off, so he took a vacation day to cover Tuesday. His boss, who also happened to be his father, was kind enough to let him go early on Monday so he could get packed and hit the road. The drive to Robert's estate would easily take 2 hours given freeway traffic and the nature of the narrow, winding roads leading to Robert's estate. He had high hopes for the weekend. Things had been a little rough with Carla over the last few weeks. She had become somewhat moody, snapping at him for no apparent reason. Sex was non-existent. What had been a 3 or 4 night-a-week enthusiastic thing had dropped off to maybe a grudging once every other week, if that. Being the concerned, loving husband, Rocky reached out to Carla, hoping to help her overcome whatever bothered her, but she would simply shrug him off, telling him she would deal with it herself. Worse yet, Carla constantly rebuffed his efforts to initiate sex or any physical contact, and now frequently recoiled from him when he tried to hold her in his arms or comfort her. The situation was becoming increasingly unbearable for him, and he wondered if she was having an affair. Then she told him they had been invited to her boss' country estate for the weekend to celebrate her promotion. "Promotion?" Rocky asked, confused. "You never said anything about a promotion. How long has this been in the works?" "A couple of weeks now," Carla told him. "I'm sorry I should have told you before. Is that why you've been so short with me lately?" "I guess so. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I didn't mean to be such a bitch to you. I've had a lot on my mind lately," she replied contritely. Rocky smiled as he wrapped her in his arms and felt saddened when she flinched slightly. "I can imagine," he said. "And to think I was worried that you might be having an affair." He felt her stiffen up slightly, but then she relaxed. "Of course not," Carla said. "I would never do something like that to you." He heard the words, but something in her tone didn't sound convincing. "I'm glad to hear that," Rocky forced himself to respond through his growing uneasiness, "because you know that's the one thing I simply wouldn't tolerate." "I know," Carla said quietly. "So do you think you can get off the Tuesday before? 3 days in the country would do us both a lot of good. Sure, I have plenty of vacation time. We can leave Monday after I get off work if you want. That would be wonderful." "I'll let Robert know and have everything packed by the time you get home," she said. "I promise it will be a weekend you'll never forget." Rocky thought about those words as he filled the gas tank on his new Dodge Ram 1500. A weekend he would never forget. He could only hope she meant that in a good way, but a part of him had mixed feelings, especially after the rather serious discussion he had with his father and uncle earlier. He pulled into the driveway, cut the engine, and headed into the house. True to her word, Carla had everything packed and ready to be loaded into the truck. He checked his bags, verifying that his stuff was packed and ready to go. He was impressed that Carla had even packed his toiletries in his overnight bag. Then he took in the other bags. "You have enough stuff here for a week," he joked when she came into the room wearing cutoffs and a t-shirt. "I thought we were just going to the country for the weekend." "You know I like to prepare for anything," she joked. "Why don't you get that stuff loaded up and I'll finish up here?" He saw that she had sandwiches on the counter and was packing a picnic basket with snacks and drinks for the ride out, as she used to do when they took day trips over the weekend. "Sounds good," he said with a smile. Maybe this would be a good weekend after all, he thought. He loaded everything into the truck, helped Carla finish packing the food, locked the house, and set off for what he ardently hoped would be a good weekend in the country. "This weekend is going to be the best ever," Carla gushed as Jake drove. "Trust me, you'll have a great time." "I'm looking forward to that," Jake replied, hoping she meant it. It took longer than Jake planned to get out of the city thanks to an accident on the freeway that brought traffic to a screeching halt. As a result, they were running almost 2 hours behind schedule. But that didn't affect Carla's buoyant good mood, which pleased Jake. He filled the gas tank up once more when he reached the road that would take them to Robert's estate, then followed the winding road through the hilly, wooded terrain. It was well after dark when they reached the gate leading to Robert's sizable two-story home. Carla had been given the code for the gate, and soon they pulled up to the sprawling brick mansion. "Damn, this is one hell of a big house," Jake exclaimed. Three men in dark suits and sunglasses approached the truck as Jake turned the engine off. "I can get our luggage," Jake said as he opened the back door of the pickup. "Thanks anyway, no sir, that's our job," one of the men said in a voice that held no humor. Another man held his hand out. "Keys, sir. I need to park your vehicle," the other man said. "Please do as they ask, sweetheart," Carla suggested, in a tone that made it clear he should obey these men. He looked at the man asking for the keys and saw the telltale bulge in his jacket that indicated he was armed. "Sure," Jake said darkly, handing his keys to the second man as the other two men grabbed their luggage unceremoniously and stalked off into the gloom without a word. "Thank you," the man said mechanically. Jake watched as the men easily carried the heavy bags up the steps. "Are you coming?" Carla asked. "Yeah, sure. On my way." Jake followed Carla and the two men up the stairs, wondering why they would need to be armed. "Ah, there you are. I trust you had a safe trip?" A tall man with dark curly hair boomed when they entered. Jake recognized the man as Robert Langston. He had met Robert a few times at company holiday events. As Jake watched, Carla and the man exchanged hugs. Then he turned to Jake. "Jake, it's good to meet you again. I am Robert Langston," he announced, extending a hand. "Welcome to my humble abode." "Thank you. A pleasure meeting you again, Mr. Langston," Jake said, accepting Robert's hand. "No need to be so formal." "Jake, may I call you Jake? I have a feeling we'll be seeing a lot more of each other," Robert said with a slight smile, "especially now that your wife is moving up in the firm." "Of course," Jake said. "I'm sorry we're running late. There was an accident on the freeway," Carla explained. "So I heard," Robert said. "I am gratified you made it safely. Are the others here?" Carla asked. "Others?" Jake wasn't aware others would be here. "Yes, they're all here." "Unfortunately, they decided to turn in for the evening. Wanted to get well rested before the festivities begin tomorrow," Robert replied. The man who took Jake's keys returned through the front door, handing the keys back to Jake. "Thank you," Jake said, putting the keys in his pocket. By now, the two men who took their luggage had returned from the second floor. "Harold, escort the Hendersons to their room if you would," Robert commanded. "Yes, sir," one of the big men said. "See you bright and early tomorrow morning," Robert said. "Sleep well." "Thank you," Carla said quietly, her eyes downcast demurely. Jake noticed but didn't say anything. He simply filed it in the back of his mind. Maybe Dad was right, he thought. "This way, please," Harold commanded in a gravelly voice. Jake and Carla followed the man up the spiral staircase and down two hallways before stopping at a locked door. He pulled out a card key and held it before a reader, and Jake heard the door lock open. Harold opened the door and motioned for them to enter the room. "Oh my," Carla gasped when they walked inside. The room was spacious and well-appointed. It even had its own bathroom with a double vanity and a large television monitor on the wall opposite the king-sized bed. A gas fireplace took up most of one wall. "This is very nice," Jake said with forced cheerfulness as he looked around. "I'm glad you approve," Harold said. He pulled out two card keys, one of which he handed to Carla and the other to Jake. "These are your keys to the room. Keep them with you at all times, please. Breakfast will be served at 7:30 tomorrow morning. Good night." "Good night," Carla replied as Harold left the room, closing the door. "This is a very nice room," Jake said as he walked around, taking inventory of the room. "Yes, it is," Carla agreed. As Jake began hanging his clothes in the closet, Carla put her things away, but Jake noticed she simply hung her garment bag in the closet, not taking her clothes out first. "So, who are these other people Robert said would be here?" he asked. "Oh, just some bigwigs from the firm," Carla replied, not looking at him. "And this new position, what is it exactly?" Jake followed up. "I'm Robert's new executive assistant," Carla told him. "The position comes with a healthy increase in pay, but I will have to travel from time to time. Are you okay with that? As long as it doesn't interfere with our lives," Jake said. "We've talked about starting a family, you know." I know, but I may have to put that off for a while, Carla quietly said, at least until I get established in my new position. What time frame are you talking about? Jake asked. I don't know, maybe 6 months, maybe a little longer. Are you okay with that? She asked. I know this job is very important to you, Jake replied neutrally, wondering what exactly this position entailed and knowing that they weren't getting any younger. You have no idea, Carla told him. This is a huge step for me. All I'm asking is for some time and a little patience. Fair enough, Jake said, taking his wife in his arms. You know I'm very proud of you, don't you? Really? Carla asked in a small voice. Of course, he responded, kissing her face. I love you, Carla, don't ever forget it. I love you too, Rocky, she replied. After they climbed into bed and turned out the lights, Jake reached for Carla, but her eyes were closed and she appeared asleep. He sighed as this had been her pattern for the last couple of months. He turned on his side and fell asleep, frustrated. The sky was a clear, deep blue with not so much as the hint of a cloud. The sun was high and a slight breeze blew from the south. Suddenly the sky grew dark and filled up with large, menacing clouds. The slight breeze became a brisk wind that grew in intensity with each passing moment. A deep rumble could be heard as the sky grew darker and the clouds gathered. A brief flash of lightning could be seen in the distance as the storm clouds grew and the wind intensified. A sudden flash of lightning struck the ground close to his feet. When he looked down, he saw a beating heart pumping blood onto the ground. Jake had seen this dream many times except for the beating heart, and each time he experienced it, someone he knew died within the following 72 hours. The last time was 2 years ago. 2 days later, his older brother Andrew was hit by a drunk driver and killed instantly. A year before that, his mother suffered a stroke just 12 hours after his dream, and she died 24 hours later, never regaining consciousness. Jake sat up in bed, sweat pouring off his body. He looked at the digital clock on his nightstand and saw it was 3:15 a.m. Although it was extremely early morning, Jake knew he had to contact his father. Grabbing his phone from the nightstand, Jake noticed he had no service. He got out of bed carefully so as not to awaken Carla, donned his trousers and shirt, then slipped on his shoes. Grabbing his card key, he opened the door to see one of Robert's armed security men at a small desk in the hallway. The man in the dark suit and glasses looked up when Jake opened the door. "Is there a problem, Mr. Henderson?" the large man asked. "I need to use a phone and there's no cell service here," Jake said. "Who do you intend to call?" "I need to call my father." "It's important," Jake told him. "This way, sir," the man said as he stood. Jake followed him to a smaller room off the hallway. "You can use that phone," he added, pointing to a phone on a small table beside a chair. "Just dial 9 for an outside line first." "Thank you," Jake said as he sat in the chair. He began dialing his father's number and saw the man standing in the doorway. "Can I have some privacy, please?" "Of course," the guard said, turning from the door. Jake couldn't believe the nerve of the man and why he was armed. He finished dialing the number and waited. His father answered after the third ring. "Hello, who is this?" his father asked. Jake could tell the older man had just been woken up. "Hi, Dad, it's me, Jake. Sorry for calling so early in the morning. I just wanted to make sure you were all right. I was in the middle of a very nice dream remembering your mother, but I'm okay, Jake. Did you have another one of your dreams?" "Yeah," Jake said quietly. He could hear the other man sigh at the other end. "Same as you had before Andy's accident?" his father asked. "Exactly the same," Jake said. "I see. Thanks for letting me know, son. I'm doing okay, but I'll keep a sharp eye out. Why don't you get back to sleep?" "Okay, I will, Dad. I just wanted to let you know," Jake told him. "I appreciate that, son. I'm fine, though. I promise you're stuck with me for a while yet," his father promised. "Remember what I said and watch your back." They ended the call and Jake walked back to his room. "Everything okay?" the guard asked. "Yeah, everything is fine. Thanks," Jake said before opening the door to his room. He undressed and climbed back into bed, and Carla groaned as she rolled over to face him. "Where did you go? Is everything okay?" she asked groggily. "Yes, everything is just fine." "I had to call Dad," Jake said. "Oh," she groaned before rolling back onto her side. From her breathing, Jake could tell she had gone back to sleep. He closed his eyes, but sleep eluded him for another hour as he kept thinking about the disturbing dream. Jake rolled out of bed at 6:00 a.m. and went to the bathroom to do his morning routine. Afterward, he took a quick shower, then changed into a clean pair of jeans and a polo shirt. Carla followed him into the bathroom after opening the blinds. Standing at the nightstand, Jake gathered his watch and wallet and looked out the window. He noticed the wrought iron bars attached to the outside of the window and wondered why they were there. There was no landing, and the concrete pad of the driveway had to be at least 20 feet down. Looking outside, Jake saw a helicopter sitting on a pad at least 40 yards from the house. He hadn't seen it before, but it was dark when they arrived the previous night. He also noticed guards carrying what looked like AR-style rifles slung over their shoulders. Jake couldn't help but wonder, was Robert expecting trouble? "Are you ready for breakfast, sweetheart?" Carla asked when she came out of the bathroom. "Ready as he'll ever be," Jake said as he snapped his wristwatch. "What happened last night?" she asked. "Another dream," Jake said. "You mean like before your brother was killed?" "Yeah, exactly the same. I called Dad to make sure he was okay." "How is he?" she asked. "Fine. I caught him in the middle of a dream," Jake said. Carla snickered in a way he found vaguely disturbing as she finished dressing. "Come on, let's go downstairs and get some breakfast." "I'm famished," she said. "Don't forget your walking stick," she reminded Jake. The walking stick was a present from his father, given to Jake after he was discharged from the hospital years earlier. During his service in Iraq, the Humvee he was in got hit by an enemy RPG. 2 other Marines in the vehicle were killed instantly, while Jake and another Marine escaped, although severely wounded. The 2 Marines managed to take cover and defend themselves until help arrived. Jake spent months in surgery and rehab and was eventually given a medical discharge. Fortunately, the doctors saved Jake's leg but had to replace his left hip. The rehab helped Jake learn to walk again, and the walking stick helped considerably. Although he could get around fine now, he still experienced pain after extensive walking, so he continued to use his father's gift. They arrived at Robert's table to find 3 other men and a woman waiting for them. Jake had briefly met the men before and knew they were executives with Robert's law firm. Although he couldn't remember their names, he had never seen nor met the woman before. "Everyone, I'd like to introduce my husband, Jake Henderson," Carla announced. Jake shook hands with the others. "Henderson, huh? That's a rather unusual name," observed Glenn Parker, one of the firm's executives. "My parents were big on the Grand Ole Opry back in the day, so they named me after a favorite country and western singer from the 50s and 60s, Jake replied. "Dad used to joke it was either that or Michael." "Yeah, I seem to recall that name," Glenn replied with a smile. "He died about 10 years ago, didn't he?" "That's what I heard," Jake replied. The woman smiled as Jake accepted her hand. "It's good to finally meet you, Mr. Henderson. I've heard a lot about you." "I'm Lisa Carson," she said. "Pleasure to meet you, Miss Carson. Please call me Jake. I hope you've heard at least a few good things." "So, what do you do for the firm?" "I'm in charge of training and recruiting, and please feel free to call me Lisa. I have heard a lot of good things, and I have a feeling we'll be spending a lot of time together this weekend." "Oh?" Jake asked. "Why is that?" "With Carla's new position, there's going to be a lot of changes in your life," Robert stated before Lisa could respond. "She's here to help you adjust." "Adjust? And why would I need to adjust to my wife's promotion?" Jake asked, more than a little concerned. He looked at Carla for an explanation, but none was forthcoming. "It's complicated," Robert stated bluntly. "Let's eat breakfast first, shall we? Maybe we can get to know each other a little before we get into the meat of things." They sat down as Robert's employees wheeled carts into the room. As Jake watched, they placed dishes in front of everyone, piled with eggs, bacon, toast, and fruit. Another employee walked around the table, pouring coffee into their cups. Jake also took stock of the armed security men who took stations on either side of the door. "So, Jake, why don't you tell us a little about yourself?" Rick Harmon, another executive, asked. "Carla says you were some kind of soldier or something." Jake glanced at Carla before answering. He had told her a little about his service, but it went over her head. As far as she was concerned, everyone who wore a green uniform was in the army. I was in the military, but I was never a soldier, Jake replied before taking a bite of his scrambled eggs, which he found delicious. Oh, what were you then? Rick asked, glancing at Carla. I was in the Marines, Jake answered. Thank you for your service, Robert said. What did you do in the Marines, if you don't mind my asking? Not at all, Jake said. I was a scout sniper assigned to a force reconnaissance unit when I was wounded. Scout sniper, huh? Mused Ryan Jones, the third executive at the table. So, basically, you killed people, right? Jake saw the glances between the other executives and the security men before replying. I suppose that's one way of putting it, Jake said. The glances became expressions of concern, and Jake wondered what was happening here. 32 enemy soldiers didn't finish their missions, he added lightly, but in a tone like a rattlesnake giving fair warning. I haven't had to kill anyone in several years, though, the military part of his mind chided himself. Had he betrayed his position or warned them off? Interesting. You never told us this, Carla, Robert said with a slight tightness in his voice, looking at Carla, who flushed slightly. It's not Carla's fault, Jake said before Carla could speak. I never told her exactly what I did in the service, partly because some of it is still classified and partly because that's a period of my life I'd much rather forget. But now you're an accountant, is that right? Rick asked hurriedly, breaking in to divert the tension that had suddenly rolled over the table like an overcast day. Yes, I was discharged after my rehab and went to college to finish my business degree. That's where I met Carla. I'm now a forensic accountant working for my father, Jake said. What does your father do? Glenn asked. He runs Henderson Specialty Investigations. Works primarily for corporations, Jake said. I've heard of them, Rick said thoughtfully. They do good work from what I've heard. They finished their breakfast, engaging mostly in small talk, but that didn't help Jake, who had a very uncomfortable feeling about all of this. He had learned to pay close attention to his instincts on the battlefield, as they had kept him alive more than once. Well, it looks like a beautiful day outside. Lisa, why don't you take Jake for a tour around the property while we go out back? Robert asked. Of course, Lisa replied. Jake looked at Carla and tried to gauge her thoughts, but couldn't. She had an expression he would hate to play poker against. Go ahead, sweetheart. You'll be okay, she said encouragingly, but a little stiffly. Yeah, okay, Jake said. He was uncomfortable with the situation, but felt he couldn't do much now, so he acquiesced to Robert and Carla. Intel and recon, he told himself, grabbing his walking stick. He looked at Lisa. Are you ready? Yes, I am, Lisa replied with a brightness he knew was phony. Sure, Jake replied, hoping the churning in his gut would settle down. After you. Carla put a hand on his arm before he left, and he stopped and looked at her. Just remember that I love you, she whispered. I love you too, Jake said. He leaned in to kiss her, but she turned her head. Shocked and humiliated, Jake backed off and walked away, not saying anything until he and Lisa were far from the main house. Jake couldn't help but notice the heavily armed security men not far away from them. With Lisa's back to him, Jake pulled his phone out and activated the voice record app while observing that he somehow had 2 Barca weak signal but enough to make a call, then replaced it in his pocket. It's so beautiful out here, Lisa finally said to break the ice. Yeah, Jake replied in a non-committal tone. They reached a wooden park bench overlooking a small pond and stopped. She sat down, so Jake followed her lead. What's going on here, he asked. You're a smart man, Jake. Why don't you figure it out, she asked in response. I've got an idea, but it's too horrifying to contemplate, Jake answered. Why don't you just come clean and tell me? All right. As you know, Carla has been picked to be Robert's next executive assistant, Lisa began. Yes, I already know that. Carla told me that much, but there's more, isn't there? Yes, there is, Lisa said. Your life is about to change, Jake. Whether it's for the better will depend on how you react. You know Carla loves you, don't you? I've heard her say so, but frankly, I'm having a hard time believing it right now. Trust me, she does love you, and she wants the best for the two of you. That's why she's willing to do whatever is necessary to guarantee your future, Lisa lectured. You do support your wife and her career goals, don't you? Of course, I always have, Jake said. He felt like he had one night years ago worming his way slowly across the ground, probing the sand for mines under a high-tech heat-dispersing cape. I'm glad to hear you say that. Then you should understand that the next year or two will only be a minor blip, a bump in the road of a long, happy marriage. A year or two? She mentioned 6 months. Why are you saying that? What's going to happen over the next 2 years? Jake asked pointedly. And what exactly is your role in all of this? I'll get to that. My role is to prepare you for what will happen and to make sure you fully understand and embrace Robert's expectations for you and your wife. Why should I care about Robert's expectations of me? I don't answer to him, and he doesn't sign my paycheck. Jake snarled, his patience growing thin. No, he doesn't, but he does sign hers, and your acquiescence will go a long way toward making Carla's job easier, Lisa explained. Acquiescence? What the hell are you talking about? I'm sure you've noticed that Robert is what most people would call an alpha male, Lisa stated as though it was as obvious as a giant flashing red neon sign. In other words, he's a self-absorbed, narcissistic asshole, Jake growled. Lisa chuckled at that, the first genuine sound she had made and the first he believed. Let's just say he expects people to fall in line, do as they're expected. That includes Carla, and by extension you. In other words, he wants to screw my wife and expects me to just accept it. Isn't that what you're telling me? His temperature was rising, but for now, firmly controlled. I wouldn't quite use that terminology, but essentially, yes. In fact, they've already been intimate several times, Lisa said, noticing the pained look on Jake's face. And you know this how? Jake asked. I was there. I recorded it, Lisa said in an even tone, as though recording two people having sex was the most natural thing one could do. Would you like to see some of the video? You're kidding, right? Not at all, Jake. Here, take a look. You might find it interesting, Lisa said, handing Jake her phone. He looked at the short video clip of Carla and Robert rutting like animals. It is interesting. Mind if I keep a copy? Jake asked. It would come in handy for his divorce, he thought. Not at all. I saved that clip especially for you. Using the phone's Bluetooth capability, Jake saved a copy to his phone. Tell me something, Jake. How has your love life been lately? Not that it's any of your damn business, but it's been practically non-existent for the last couple of months. Why? Actually, it is my business, and the reason is simple. Robert instructed Carla to cut you off most of the time. He's quite possessive of his property. What? And she just went along with it? Jake growled between clenched teeth, his anger growing. Of course. He is her master now. She answers to him just as all of his previous assistants answered to him, and he will expect you to answer to him as well. Jake cringed at the term master. He can expect in one hand and shit in the other and see which one fills up first, Jake snarled through gritted teeth. He saw the smirk on her face and felt like wiping it off with the back of his hand. So what does the asshole expect from me? Money? Hardly, Lisa chuckled. He expects your obedience, your submission, and he will expect you to publicly display that tonight before the other senior partners. What are you talking about? What does he expect me to do? The dynamics of your marriage will change drastically while Carla is in her current position. To reflect that, Robert has documents he needs you to sign. These documents state that you willingly surrender your marriage rights, property, and assets to him while Carla is his assistant. After he has had his way with you, he will expect you to get on your knees in front of him, in full view of your wife and the others, and he will expect you to fellate him to completion, Lisa said with a face devoid of emotion. I know it is difficult to hear, but Carla expects it of you as well. She's quite eager to see you do it. In this way, you will cede any authority of your marriage to him for as long as he deems to own her. Let me see if I understand what you just said. Your asshole boss wants me to sign everything over to him, let him screw me in the ass, then suck his dick in front of Carla and the other executives. Are you kidding me? Jake growled, murder in his eyes. I am not kidding, Jake, and yes, that is what he wants. He also expects you to swallow, and so does Carla. Of course, the whole encounter will be captured on video. Of course. That way he can hold it over my head. Sounds like extortion or blackmail to me. You make it sound so tawdry, but it would be used to keep you in line, Lisa said nonchalantly. After you have submitted yourself to him, he will take Carla to bed. They will leave for New York City early tomorrow morning, where they will spend the weekend. And where will I be while they play in New York? Jake asked. You will remain here, confined to your room. You will be fed and watched over. When they return, you will drive Carla back to your residence. You will follow her directions to the letter without question, Lisa replied. So if I understand you correctly, I'm to be literally screwed in the butt, made to suck an asshole's dick, then kept prisoner here against my will. And what would I get out of this? If you go along with Robert's program, you will be left relatively unscathed, except for some minor humiliation. And when he's finished with Carla, you will be well compensated. And I take it that you, the asshole, and my soon-to-be ex-wife conspired to destroy my marriage, take my life's work, and literally screw me in the butt. Am I right? I wouldn't put it quite like that, but I suppose from your point of view, yes. We worked on this together, Lisa said in a neutral tone of voice. Did he do this with his other assistants? Jake asked. Yes, Lisa said. And they went along with this? They did, Lisa told him. In fact, the husbands enjoyed it tremendously. What would it hurt? Carla would love to see you pleasure her master. I'm sure she would. They can both kiss my ass and screw off, Jake hissed. And you can tell that asshole if he makes a move on me. I'll do everything I can to make sure it'll be the last thing he ever does. I understand you're angry, Jake, and you have every right to be, but you would benefit in the end in more ways than one. But there's more. More? Jake asked, shocked. The document requires you to obtain a vasectomy at your earliest convenience, and it states that you will accept and take responsibility for any children Carla and Robert produce. In fact, she intends to make a show of flushing her birth control after you sign. And if I don't go along with all of this, let's just say you wouldn't like the consequences, Lisa stated. A few tried to fight Robert and found themselves penniless and convicted sex offenders in prison for illegal videos which just happened to be found on their personal devices. And you may be aware of what happens to sex offenders in prison. Not a pretty existence. That sounds like a threat, Jake responded. Call it what you want. All right, I will, Jake replied as he pulled the phone out of his pocket. He stopped, saved the audio recording, and looked through his contacts until he found what he was looking for. Verifying that he had a signal, he selected the number he wanted, then held the phone to his ear. What are you doing? Lisa asked, her face turning red with anger. Jake smiled and put a finger to his lips, indicating that she should remain silent. Sheriff Henderson, the man said when he answered Jake's call. Uncle Bob, how are you doing? Jake asked. Rocky, what's the word? Dad was right. I need an extraction, fast. You got the address? I got it, son. I also have the coordinates from your phone. What's your situation? I counted at least 15 heavily armed men. There's a gate at the entrance. Code is 6,973 unless they changed it since last night. Langston and 3 of his executives are here along with his trainer. She just gave me the lay of the land, so to speak. Got it all on audio. I'll send it to you, Jake said. Copy that, Bob replied. We're on our way. ETA approximately 5 minutes. Can you hold out that long? I think so, Uncle Bob, as long as you're willing to call it self-defense. And thanks. My pleasure. Wouldn't want to see anything happen to my favorite nephew. What about Carla? According to Langston's trainer, she's an accomplice and already a whore for Langston, so we drop her. I'm sorry to hear that, son, Bob said sadly. Yeah, me too. Well, you hang tough, young man. We'll be there shortly. With that, Jake ended the call, then sent the audio file to his uncle. What did you just do? A frightened Lisa asked after Jake replaced his phone. Who did you just call? I called in the cavalry, Jake replied with a smile. I need to get back to the house and warn the others, Lisa stammered, starting to rise, clearly disoriented by the turn of events. Jake shook his head, held her hand, and gently pulled her back down on the bench. She stared at his sniper expression in horrified fascination. I think not. Well, sit here and enjoy the sunshine for a few minutes. Might be the last sunshine you ever see, Jake said, allowing himself a satisfied smile. I think you might have bitten off a little more than you can chew this time, Robert. Ryan said after Carla and the four men took their seats next to the large pool behind Robert's house. Why? Because Carlos Cuck is a former Marine? Big deal, Robert scoffed. What's he going to do anyway? He's alone, unarmed, and surrounded by a small platoon of armed security. If he rejects Lisa's proposal, then we go to Plan B. Just be careful, Rick cautioned. Don't worry, Robert said. I've got it all under control. We'll spike his drinks tonight, and when the time comes, he'll be more than happy to suck my cock. I can't wait to see that, Carla said. Are you going to make him swallow like you did the others? Of course, Robert said. By the time this weekend is over, your little cuck will be begging for my meat, he added, causing Carla to giggle like a schoolgirl. Just don't push him too hard, Ryan said. He's not like the others. They were weak, has not. They're all the same, Ryan, Robert sneered. No, they're not. This guy is a combat Marine trained to kill. You need to be ready for anything. Settle down, Ryan. I've got this, Robert scolded. But I am curious about something. Why didn't you know about your husband's service? He asked Carla. Well, it's like Jake said. He never told me any details, Carla replied. All he would say is that he was in the military. It doesn't matter, Robert snorted. He's going down tonight and your career will take off. What if he files for divorce? Carla asked. Then I'll ruin him the same way I did the others. He'll end up in prison for sexual assault and other charges or worse. Don't worry, dear. I'll take care of him. What's that sound? Glenn asked, looking around. Everyone stopped talking and listened. The telltale sounds of helicopters could be heard all around them. Suddenly, one of Robert's security men ran to the pool. "We've got a problem, Mr. Langston," he huffed. "What's that?" Robert asked. They heard shouts and the sounds of men scuffling. Then they saw two uniformed deputies in body armor walk to the pool, their rifles ready. "Freeze," one of the deputies ordered. "Drop your weapon," the deputy told Robert's security man, who instantly obeyed, not wanting to get shot. Other deputies poured in, placing Carla, Robert, and the other three men in handcuffs. "What's going on?" Robert demanded. "I'll have your badges for this. Quiet. You're all under arrest," a deputy stated before reading a laundry list of charges. He finished by reading their Miranda rights. The deputies led all 5 detainees around the building where they saw 4 helicopters, a bus, and 3 large vans. Officers were everywhere, escorting the handcuffed and disarmed security men to the bus. Carla saw Jake standing next to a large man in a khaki uniform. "Jake, what's going on?" she cried out. Jake and the large man walked toward her. "Your little party is over, Carla," Jake said calmly. "I'm sorry, I forgot my manners. Carla, this is Sheriff Robert Henderson. You remember my Uncle Bob, don't you?" "Uncle Bob," Carla gasped weakly. "I didn't know you were a sheriff." "I guess it slipped my mind," Bob said with a smirk. "Jake, please. This is all a big misunderstanding." "You have to believe me," Carla cried desperately. "No, Carla, I don't have to believe you. In fact, I don't think I've ever been more shocked and disappointed in my whole life. I'll be visiting my attorney ASAP to have divorce papers drawn up. As of now, you're dead to me. Do you understand? Dead." With that, Jake grabbed her left hand and pulled her rings off, depositing them in his pocket. "You son of a bitch," Robert snarled as he unsuccessfully tried to jerk free of the 2 deputies holding him. "I'll be out of jail in no time, and then I'm going to kill you. You hear me, you piece of shit?" "That sounds like a threat to me." "What do you think, Uncle Bob?" Jake asked with a smirk that trumped all of Robert's previous condescension by a wide margin. "Sure sounded like one to me as well," Bob said. "We'll just add that to all the other charges against him, and it'll help make sure he never gets bail." "Don't worry, Mr. Langston, my boys will take good care of you," he chuckled. "And your friends." "Get these people out of here," he ordered the deputies, who instantly complied. Jake and Bob watched as the perpetrators were loaded into the bus. Jake felt as if the last several years of his life were a lie. He had loved Carla from the moment they met, and now everything had fallen apart. Bob slapped him on the shoulder. "It'll get better, son. Trust me on that," he said. Bob had been through a divorce from a cheating spouse years ago and knew the pain Jake felt. "Thanks, Uncle Bob, for everything." "You're welcome, son. If you need anything, give me a call. And tell your dad I said hello. I think he has a bottle of his best waiting for your visit." "I will. Is it safe for me to get my things? I need to get the hell out of here." "Sure." I think they're just about finished up inside the place anyway, Bob told him. After they said their goodbyes, Jake packed his things and went home. 1 week later, after commiserating with his father, Jake saw the family attorney and had divorce papers drawn up according to the prenuptial agreement they had signed before the marriage. He waited until they were served before visiting Carla in the county jail. "This will be the one and only time I visit you, Carla," he said when she took her seat. "I legally need to make sure you got the papers." "I got them," Carla said quietly. "I've already signed them and sent them back." "Good. As I'm sure you could tell, I followed the prenuptial. I'll wait until after your trial to dispose of your things." "I appreciate that," Carla said. "I don't understand something." "How did you know?" "You'll hear the gory details in court, so I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I suspected something was happening for a couple of months before that weekend, but I didn't have any proof. About 4 months before that Veterans Day, the estranged husband of one of Robert's so-called assistants approached Dad with a pretty wild story. He also brought some spreadsheets and documents he said his estranged wife got from Robert's system. Dad had me look over the spreadsheets to see what I could find. Naturally, I couldn't say anything to you, privilege and conflict of interest and all that sort of thing. It took some time, but we finally found what we were looking for, evidence of all kinds of nefarious financial dealings with some rather shady characters. Your lover did an excellent job hiding them, but not good enough. A couple of weeks before that weekend, Dad turned what he had over to the feds, who were more than interested in Langston's dealings. In fact, they were set to raid your offices sometime in December. Dad said I needed to be very careful that weekend. He relayed what his contact told him, even though he found it very difficult to believe. We spoke with my Uncle Bob, who, as you know, is the county sheriff where Robert's property is located. I had hoped nothing would happen, but that's not how it worked. Lisa Carson told me what you and your lover had planned. By the way, I recorded that little conversation. I'm glad we live in a state where only one party's permission is required for a recording like that. I do have a few questions for you, though. What do you want to know? Carla asked. How long before that weekend were you screwing your so-called master? About 2 months, Carla replied. Jake was surprised that she was so candid. That's about the time things fell off with us. Did he tell you to cut me off? Yes, she said quietly, her face turning red. I suppose I should get tested for STIs then, Jake said, causing Carla even more embarrassment. Did you really want to see me suck your lover off? Carla looked down, refusing to meet her husband's gaze. Well? He pressed angrily. She looked back up at him with tears in her eyes again. Yes, she said. Surely you knew I would never willingly agree to do that. I would rather die first. So why? Because I was so smitten with Robert that I would have gone along with anything he wanted. You don't understand. He liked the feeling of having power over everyone around him, and if I didn't comply, he had what he called a Plan B, Carla admitted. You mean the drugs? Yes, they found the vial with the chemical he intended to use on me. I had nothing to do with that, Carla claimed. That's interesting because they found your prints all over the vial, Jake said, causing Carla to look at him with shock. Which tells me you were part of his plot against me. No, I never wanted to hurt you, she sobbed. The evidence says otherwise, Carla. You not only cheated on me, you plotted and schemed with your so-called master to destroy me as a man. So there's no way back. Nope, none for you. No forgiveness, nothing. Like I told you that day, you are dead to me, Jake hissed, as Carla shed hot tears but didn't flinch. I've wasted enough time on you. Goodbye, Carla. Enjoy what's left of your miserable life. Before I go, I need to let you know that there are some friends I have in prison who are waiting to meet you. It will be fun. With that, he stood and walked away, immune to her tears. After several court appearances, Robert, Lisa, and the others were found guilty of all the charges leveled against them. As the ringleader, Robert received a life sentence in federal prison, meaning he would never be paroled. Having played a minor role in Robert's illegal financial schemes, the 3 executives were sentenced to 20 years for their parts in Robert's schemes. Lisa and Carla were given somewhat lighter sentences. Several others in the firm were charged for their roles in the conspiracy. A few turned state's evidence against Robert and were given immunity as part of a plea. By the time the smoke cleared, the Kensington Law Group no longer existed. Jake's divorce from Carla went through quickly and without a hitch due to Carla's prison sentence. Jake boxed up all of her possessions and placed them in storage for her parents to collect at their convenience. On Memorial Day, Jake, his father, and Bob celebrated Independence Day, as did the rest of the nation, with a barbecue and fireworks. Bob brought a guest to the festivities and introduced her to Jake. He was instantly taken by the attractive, shapely, brown-eyed brunette in front of him and had a difficult time not staring at her well-toned legs set off by a pair of short denim cutoffs. "Son, this is Mary Simmons. She just moved here from Dallas and started up with me a couple of weeks ago." "You're a deputy?" Jake asked. "Sure am," Mary said with a confident smile that lit her face. "She's also a former Marine," Bob said. "An MP, like your dad." "Marines, huh?" Mary said. "Ura." "Ura," Jake replied. "I think we're going to get along just fine," Jake gushed with a huge grin. "I think so too," Mary agreed. "Buy a girl a beer?" "Sure," Jake replied. "I could use a fresh one myself." He grabbed 2 beers from his father's ice chest and handed one to her. "Your uncle told me about your last op." "Sounds perfectly executed," Mary said when they sat down. "I'm sorry about what you went through with your ex." "Yeah, well, I guess it happens," Jake remarked quietly. "The divorce will be final soon." "How about you? I saw the mark on your ring finger. Were you married as well?" "I was," Mary said, "but apparently my husband wasn't, if you know what I mean. I came home early one night and found him in bed with his secretary in my bed, no less. I'm sorry to hear that." "If you ask me, he was an idiot and a fool," Jake told her as he took in her figure. "I agree," Mary said. "I'm just glad we didn't have any children. Do you have kids?" "No, thankfully." "We were talking about starting a family, then things went to hell in a handbasket," Jake said. Jake and Mary talked for much of the evening and had a blast when Bob and Jake's father set off the fireworks. By the time the evening was over, Jake felt much better. At the very least, he believed he had met a kindred spirit in Mary. "Are you about ready to head back, Mary?" Bob asked after they finished the fireworks display. "I guess it is about that time," she remarked before turning to Jake. "I had a wonderful time, Jake. It was a real pleasure meeting you." "I had a wonderful time as well, Mary, and I'm very glad I got to meet you. In fact, I'd like to see you again, if that's all right." "That would be more than all right, Jake," she said, a broad smile on her face. "Here's my number," she added, handing him a card with her cell number. "Your uncle keeps me busy, but I'm usually off Saturday nights. Give me a call." "Will do," Jake said, returning her smile. He took her card, observing the wink and smile from his uncle. "I'll call you this Thursday. Talk to you then," Mary said before kissing his cheek. They said their goodbyes and left. "Nice-looking young lady," Jake's father said after they left. "Yes, very nice," Jake said with a massive grin. "I hope you intend to keep your promise to her," the older man said. "Absolutely," Jake said. "Good man," his father said, slapping Jake on the back. "Come on, help me clean up and let's see if we can polish off the rest of that beer." "You going to give me the day off tomorrow to sleep it off?" Jake asked. "Hell no," his father replied with a laugh. Laughing in return, Jake joined his father, his mind on a sweet brunette with the sexiest legs he had seen in quite some time. Waterloo, Waterloo. Where will you meet your Waterloo? Every puppy has his day, everybody has to pay, everybody has to meet his Waterloo, Jake thought to himself as he cleaned up. Thank you for watching. What would you do if you found out your spouse was plotting against you with their boss? Share your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories.